Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight as we discuss our budget proposal. This is our public input meeting of April 21st, and our budget chairman is running a little bit late, so we're going to go ahead and ask Ms. Meunier if she'd come to the front, and let's get started with it.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Hughes, board members, Mr. Pye, and the public. Thank you for attending our public input meeting for our budget proposal for fiscal year 2021 through 2022. I'm glad to be able to present this in a public input session. It's always been a priority of the district, and especially Mr. Pye, to have the various stakeholders in our budget to hear our presentation and to provide us feedback. So as in the past, if you're okay with this, we will go through the presentation and then ask for questions at the end. So as we were preparing for this input meeting tonight, we were a little bit nervous because we weren't hearing anything from the state. Their budget process has been delayed through the House side and then over to the Senate side because they were waiting for the Board of Economic Advisors and various groups to meet so that they could get some good projections before they sent it out and before they met. So hot off the press, just news from yesterday, as a matter of fact, out of the Senate Finance Committee, which is typically what we try to do. The first round of budget proposals is the House Ways and Means version, and then this would be the Senate Finance version. And again, we didn't have any numbers until late yesterday afternoon. So we are proud to and excited to present some good news out of Columbia. So from yesterday's Senate Finance Committee, there has been a proposal of a $1,000 raise for teachers that they will fund. Yay! A proposal of the base student cost to be increased from $2,500 from the House Ways and Means version to $2,516 per student. That's helpful on our EFA side. A proposal of the 1% employer retirement contribution, which was mandated for this year, to be covered in part or all, we are not sure yet, by the state. And then also there's some non-recurring money that they are proposing to send out for aid to local school districts. So we are excited about those increases. So just as a reminder for our DD2 information, as we have said, our 135th day from FY20 was at 25.2. Our 45th day numbers at the beginning of this year had dropped to 24,270. We just reached our 135th day for this current year, and we're reviewing those counts now, and the numbers look almost identical to the 45th day numbers. So we did indeed lose that many students for this current year. But at least we didn't have less to where our EFA revenue will drop anymore, so that's good. One thing that I will say that we did adjust based on the student count. For next year, I had built back in that we would be receiving all of our students and they would all come back. But to be more realistic, we have adjusted those numbers from EFA to signify that we'd get back 85% of the students. We didn't want to overestimate in that area. So the base student cost, which we just said that the Senate side has given us an increase of $16, would only indicate a loss of $16 million for this year to DD2 versus $17 million that we had reported before. And that difference comes from the state law has required $3,164 to be given for each student, but at this time, they're only funding it at $2,516. But again, it's $16 more than what we had in the original budget proposal. Another big impact for DD2 for our budget is Act 388. We've already discussed this before many times, but just as a reminder, especially for the public to remember, Act 388 took off operating millage from homeowners. So no taxes come into our operating budget from homeowners. So unfortunately, it's all up to the industry and businesses. And since we are a bedroom community, for lack of a better word, we don't receive as much operating millage as some of our neighboring districts who have those businesses and industry. So at this time, I will point out, and we'll go into more detail about it a little bit later, is that the value of a mill for our operating has been increased to $332,378. That's an updated number from the last time. But our debt millage is at double that. We don't know if there's going to be an increase on that side or not. These are coming from updated figures that we've gotten from county administrative staff. Another area to point out for the public to remember is our fund balance for our general fund. We are capped at 15%. That is a local legislation that we have tried to have repealed. So this year has been a really good effort to get that repealed, and I hope that happens. At this current time, we are working under continuing resolution from last year, which Senator Bennett had introduced a proviso that waived that 15% fee. So since we're under continuing resolution, we anticipate to be able to go above that 15% if we need to for this year, because we're right at 14.8%. However, it's not permanent. So hopefully, if folks have time to reach out to their legislators and ask if we can have this repealed. They're almost at the end of their session this year, so it'd be great if we could have that repealed now, but if not, they're in the first year of their 2-year cycle. If we can have it done next year, that would be helpful too. Since we're working under the waiver for this year, that would be great, under the proviso. Also wanted to let everyone know about our state funding that we received and federal funding for the COVID-19 expenditures. We received state funding for the Coronavirus Relief Fund. That was to support school districts with COVID expenditures for remote learning, PPE, and cleaning safety measures. We gave you a very detailed list last time. This is just a summary of what those funds were for. The next item is our federal funding, which is called the CARES Act, and our allocation was $3.5 million. I forgot to mention that the state funding, we have spent all that money. We have PPE in place, excuse me, and cleaning supplies, and we really spent all that money quickly so we could get our students back and our staff back safely. Our $3.5 million also is almost all the way gone. We use that to continue the safety measures, to continue to employ personnel, and for our additional expenditures for student learning. Thankfully, we received another source of federal funding called the SR2 monies, and we were allocated $18 million from that. We have just completed our plan that we are going to submit to the state. The big emphasis in this plan, in this pod of money, is on summer remediation programs, on air quality and building repairs to promote safety. Our summer remediation programs, our summer camps, and a lot of additional academic learning opportunities this summer. We've also heard, we haven't gotten our official numbers yet, that there is an SR3 package from the latest stimulus package that was signed by President Biden. What we've heard is that the allocation is almost double of what we received from SR2. So we'll be able to use this other federal funding piece to continue with the additional learning and with the additional COVID-19 expenditures. One item that I really wanted to point out is that these ESSER funds are to be utilized for items that are related to COVID expenditures, and they're not intended for normal operating expenditures of the general fund. So we can't really use this to supplement our general fund budget. We have to use it for above and beyond expenditures. Yes. Yes, sir.
Now it's on. I'm sorry. I thought it was on.
Yes, sir. We're able to claim some of those teachers. We have to identify who those are.
Right, but I'm
working,
just-
Yes, sir. I was working with personnel department so we could get those that final count.
So I know that people out there probably realize that is a big expense, and I want them to know that's why we didn't foolishly go out and dismiss all these teachers, and then we bringing back 85% of the students. Now we've sent the teachers packing. There would be not enough teachers to fill the void. We're bringing back the 85%, but we're also going beyond. We know the high schools and the middles are growing, so we're expecting a few hundred there. We have to add some teachers, but we also, this is our chance. Our classes are too big. The high school classes all came in as an average of 28, 29. I'm dropping that to 25 to 1. That's COVID. I can't teach the children. I can't catch them up. With those ridiculously large numbers, teachers just can't handle it. And middle school is also going 25 to 1, and some of our grade levels in the elementary have also dropped. And we're still looking at other ways. How can we best meet the needs of the children? And we feel that classroom and the class size reduction is better than hiring tutors and all. First of all, they're not available. If I can find someone, they need to be teaching students all day and not just a select group, because all of them need help to move forward. So we
Those
want
are
you to know
absolutely-
that's a plan we're working
Yes.
on behind the scenes. It's not really in this, but it will be affected as we start showing you how we're spending that money.
Right.
And I want you to be surprised how we're doing that, and why are we not cutting teachers out. When we lost 1,000 kids, we're anticipating at least 850 of those are coming back. I like to call 1,000, and if they don't, we'll get blessed again, hopefully, as we've done this year. It's COVID that caused the problem, and we wouldn't be in this situation. We've opened every school year since I've been here, every school year, not needing teachers. And so the teacher shortage is out there, and other districts are having a severe time. We're going to have it because we're trying to keep pace with not losing teachers, but we can't afford to take a year where we drop 50 teachers, say, and then next year we're going to make up the 50 plus the new 50, and there won't be 100 new ones out there. That's my concern. So we're trying to play it safe. And you said, well, what happens if the children don't come back, and after 2 years of this money is gone, or 3 years, what will we do? We have what's called attrition. At that time, we'd be forced, if the monies weren't there, to raise the class sizes back up, because we weren't able to find new money, but we should not be in any deficit, because this is recurring money. We want you to understand, we know that this stimulus money is not recurring, but most of them, they're allowing us 2 and 3 years to be able to spend it. So if they do allow us up to that time, we're trying to fast forward. We have so many needs, but the number one intention of this last pot of money is to use it for instruction. And I don't know any better way than having teachers.
Those are very allowable expenditures. Thank you for elaborating on that, Mr. Pye. As we know, our state revenues are about 74% of our total budget, so that's why we wait every year with bated breath, waiting for the state numbers to come out to us so that we can know how to complete our budget. And again, most of those expenditures that we see are 87% of salaries and benefits for our staff, because as Mr. Pye said, we need teachers and we need staff to run the district, so that's most of our expenditures right there. So this is a very good slide that I'm pleased to present to you tonight, based on hot off the press new information that we got just yesterday, not only from the state, from the Senate Finance Committee, but we also had our budget meeting with Dorchester County administrative team. And yesterday they were able to tell us that our projected amount of property taxes to be collected, not because of a millage increase, but because of assessments, is $6.4 million. We had reported that before from information we had got from the county before at 1.7. So this was great news for us yesterday. The other item that has changed on this slide is our EFA funding. So as we said, we reduced that amount by the number of students, the 15% that we felt probably would not return, to be conservative, but also increased that by the extra $16, which was quantified in the information we got from the Senate Finance Committee. So that gave us a net change of $16,000. So that put our additional state and local revenues from prior year budget to this new year proposed budget to an additional $9,147,640. We didn't adjust this slide because we kept our expenditures the same as we had proposed the last time for our teacher salary increases for fiscal year 21. That was the step increase that was frozen, so it was approved at the state level. They also are requiring a fiscal year 22 teacher salary step increase. They also, as we had said, gave us a 1% retirement increase, and so those total mandated expenditures were $7 million. Step increases for our other employees, and then a net decrease in our other expenditures brought us down to our total additional expenditures of $9.1 million. So to show you in numbers, this is our updated revenue accounts, and we just made adjustments to the local property tax line so that our proposed budget for next year, based on information, as we said, we got from Dorchester County officials, is $61,024,676.
And they basically said too that that was a conservative number. That's what I picked up. And there's hopeful that they might come in better. And of course, we on the other side said it could come in lower because they're counting on everybody paying their taxes, the vehicles and all that stuff. And we all know that's not always the way it happens. So we're still at the mercy of who pays, who doesn't pay. But they felt strong about the numbers they gave us yesterday, that we could count on that, plug those in and do. And that was quite a surprise and wonderful. We thank our county people for trying. They genuinely are trying to help us make this budget without a millage increase, and that would be wonderful. So that's where we're headed. Just thought I had to tell you, in case that didn't pass a note, I am beside myself. Wow. Because that was over $5 million that flew in the window to go in with $500,000 or whatever we got today from the Senate piece if it passes. So it's a chance that we will do fine. But again, our stuff is pretty well conservative, but we can't say what the other agencies are. I'd like to think they know to be conservative, because whatever it came in at we predicted before the tax thing, was it going up 1%? That's what we figured the first time.
That was based, yes, sir, for our long-term projections for a 5-year plan.
But I was told by a council member that it was going to be closer to 5, and of course we were totally in disbelief. However, the numbers they gave us yesterday was a little over 4. So, I'm optimistic. I'm still wanting that 5th one to put us in good shape. But even at that, I think, we can't control the numbers, but we should be in pretty good shape for the local here. And they understand our crisis, our concern, and also how the public is crying out this is not the year to be going around giving tax increases to people, especially our small businesses. Many of them are struggling to stay open. And so we want to be sensitive to all that, but we still have a school system to run. So it's not a fancy budget, but I think I'm feeling real good that we're much closer than we've been in years of trying to do a very conservative bones, down to the bones budget. There's no frills in this one, but when we came to you last time, we had no frills, and we're looking at almost a $5 million deficit to make that up. And I know y'all were sitting there with all the things we would like to do, thinking that could never happen. So if this works out, it should put us in better shape. I just wanted to make sure you didn't miss this moment in the presentation.
You're about to steal my thunder, Mr. Pye.
I had to. I didn't know if you were going to get there quick enough.
Well, I was trying to see if anybody was going to make any reactions on the board, and then I was going to show them. I was going to show them this slide. Yay!
That's what I was wanting you to show. Show that slide.
So based on the information from the State Senate Finance Committee, if that passes, and the additional local property tax revenue from the county, we have a balanced budget. I don't know if yes.
All right. Then we know that there are a lot of things we need and people expect, and that's not in here. But we're not cutting anything back that need to be cut back. We're certainly moving ahead with our teachers and our programs and things. We don't really need any new programs. If we do, they're all will be remedial type things that ESSER will pay for. So we feel good about that. But salary increases and all, that's not in this, above and beyond what the state is doing, because they're only looking out for the teachers right now.
Right.
And we want, our policy in this district has always been, since I've been here, we are all in the teapot together. So we can't do without bus drivers, we can't do without nurses, we can't do without any of those people. So we represent everybody, and that's a large expenditure. But again, I'm hopeful that if they're as conservative as we are, I'm sure the Senate is showing how liberal they possibly can get.
Exactly.
And I don't think the House, they way down there conservative. That could still be a game changer to a little bit. We probably can make do, but we didn't want to have to do fund balance. That's a bad thing for us to even look at, because that's not recurring money.
Correct.
And we don't want to live on that. The stimulus is one thing I can work with, monies, but we just can't do the fund balance and make it work, and it will just kill our credit rating, and to have to be able to do that. So we'll lose in the end if we can avoid doing that as possible. So that was the significance when you look at the whole ball of wax. And so we'll be down in the end trying to look at, should we receive additional funding? Should we? Where would be our top priority of where we want to go with that? And I think it'll be pretty self-explanatory that we want to do all of it. But if we can only do one thing, what would that be?
Thank you, Mr. Pye. You're giving the presentation for me.
That's
Can we
all right.
switch chairs?
I want to make sure they hear it, and I'm real concerned the audience who's not able to maybe follow as close as we are. And we've done this so much that we take for granted everybody understands this, but this is so different from what we said a week ago that I want to make sure people understand why it was different. It's not because you woke up from a long nap and you had figured the numbers wrong. There's a reason for what we have here. But again, you know, it's out of our hands whether it happens or not. It's just out there. It's just, we've been highly, well, we're blessed.
Yesterday was a great day. Mr. Pye said he was going to do cartwheels down the hall. It was going to be great. It was so great. All right, he almost stole my thunder, but I got to show you the slides, so yay. So these are the items that we had talked about. We've been talking about for a number of years, trying to add these items back into the budget. Y'all had asked about the transportation department getting salary adjustment. As Mr. Pye said, we like to include our whole district as a whole. So I had also included in there something that we had discussed from our 2017 salary survey was for other salaries that are not the certified folks, but all of support staff folks, to give them a small increase based on that salary survey would be 1.5 million. I think we had talked about all of these other items before as well, about increasing our per pupil allocations that were cut from $72.50 down to $52.50 that the schools get for operations. That was cut over 10 years ago and has never been reinstated. Just as the guidance counselors at the elementary level, those folks were all cut at the in 2010, the last time we had such a huge budget deficit. So, and they've never been added back. Okay, yes, sir. So for the SROs, we cut that number down to 2. There are 3 schools in the North Charleston schools who do not have uniformed officers assigned to them, so they've been sharing as one uniformed officer. We have had internal folks in all of the other schools that are assigned there, but a few years back we had made it a point to have uniformed SROs in all of the schools. So we wanted you to be aware of that there are a couple of schools that are sharing at this time. We had asked Dorchester County if they would reallocate an additional SRO that they had at the Give Ann's Alternative Program School to go to one of those North Charleston schools. So that leaves us with 2 in North Charleston that don't have uniformed officers.
Without going into details on those SROs, because I don't want to say that in a public setting, is that a shared campus, or is that they're actually going like miles
So one
apart?
of the schools that does not have a uniformed officer is at a shared campus, yes.
Okay.
And they have a retired police officer as their internal person. So we feel we have good coverage there. It's just not a parked police car out in front.
Okay.
Can I ask something? First of all, do you know, and you may not know, does the department, the sheriff's department, or for our county, were they also included in any of the CARES monies?
I'm not sure if they specifically got CARES monies, but they did at the county level itself.
At the county level? And so, is our pay structure the same what is the difference between the town and the county that we're going to have to come up with? The county,
Well,
or
right now,
North
North Charleston does not charge us anything.
It still does not, but it's only is sharing the two schools.
They had budget cuts in their department as well during this COVID time, so they were not able to send a uniformed officer to all of our schools for free to us anymore, unfortunately. But if we were to get uniformed officers, we didn't talk to North Charleston to see if we could pay them. This is if we were to have our Dorchester County folks go there, because we have a current contract with them. We haven't asked them if they could hire 2 additional personnel, and that could be an issue too, if they even had the personnel to do that.
Now, how COVID related North Charleston's problem may be, I know finding people was the number one
Right.
issue, but they may have other issues brought on by COVID, I don't know. So I don't know if they can get anything through COVID monies to be able to help us, or if we possibly could, since I do know safety is a top priority
Right.
in that. So it's worth exploring.
That's
We
why I
might
wanted to
can,
ask.
but we wanted to, the extra one we had at Give Hands this year, we have like 60 to 80 children there and 2 full-time officers. That's good, but that's not right when you have schools with 800 and 900, no supervision. And my concern is not the school not having the uniformed police officer full-time. It's the community that these schools are in. We've had higher crime rates, higher discipline problems in the schools. I'm very concerned about the safety of our staff and our children unless we have a little bit more structure in the schools in that area. And I just believe that strongly. So I'm seeing it as more of a safety issue, big time, than it is anything else. So we're going to try to exhaust everything we can to make that happen. The county seemed not to think it was a problem. They've got to work with Sheriff Knight on his concerns. I know we put the person at Give Hands for a reason. There were 200 or 300 students at the time. And of course, we may get back to some higher numbers next year. They're doing so much virtually out there. If they continue to do that, it will be less kids on the campus than normally, and therefore we may not really need 2 as much as we need at least 1 somewhere else. And that's mixing governmental agencies, and sometimes they don't blend, but the county, the city of North Charleston and Dorchester too have formed such a partnership recently. We're doing so many wonderful things together. This would be the cherry on the cake for me. So we're going to see what we can do to make it happen.
Yeah, and just to follow up, I definitely think the SROs are absolutely a top priority. I don't know that any of us knew that there was even an issue in North Charleston with the SROs because we've just been blessed to have that work for so long. But I did want to go back and ask the transportation department salary adjustment. Can you tell us a little bit about what that includes? What does that look like for that $457,000?
We had calculated based on the drivers and the monitors to get an extra $1 an hour for their work that they do. And it, between salary and their fringe, it would be $457,000 is the estimate for the routes that they run for next year.
And I know we talked about it last time, and again, I'm happy that it's up there. I would like to see it moved to earlier in the presentation because that means it would actually be in our budget. $457,000 is no small chunk of change. And again, I understand the point that we like to certainly have equitable funding for all of our different pay groups. But at the same time, I think we've got to be very cognizant if there are certain pay groups that we're having some issues with. I think a lot of us could probably argue transportation, we're having some issues there. Then I think we need to probably focus our energy and our attention to that segment. And so again, I don't know if there's anything that can be done budget-wise to make that as well as I think the SROs a priority. but I just worry, transportation especially, there's so, and again, I'm not demoting anyone, everyone in the district, that's the problem, everyone in the district is absolutely has a critical part to play, but transportation is so foundational and critical when it comes to our kids and them getting to school and getting there on time, and if it starts a day and it ends a day. And again, if we don't get that right, then I think we've got some major concerns there. So again, that's just my 2 cents. I think that the transportation stuff and the SROs, those aren't even items currently not included. Those are must-have items to me that we've got to figure out how to get into the actual budget for this year.
We've done the best we could. It's not. We have to have new money or it can't happen unless we go back now and cut somebody else, another group. So, and all the groups are screaming. You know, we had a teacher come before us and ask for the bonus that we gave teachers, that we give custodial workers the same amount, not bus drivers. They pushed for that. That's another group that the principals mentioned. They feel they're underpaid for all they have to do to clean. We can't find enough of them. What we used to have 10 on a crew cleaning a large school, we now may have 6. These people are working really hard, some heavy lifting too. So it's hard for us we need all of these people. Without them, we can't function, especially now with all the COVID stuff. We're trying to work face to face. The drivers, everything else, we got to keep those numbers down. We keep the mask on the kids. It's just, we've put a lot of burden on the folks during this period of time that I think that's why you're hearing an age-old problem. I have done my homework with at least 25 districts. We're trying to get it from all around the state. And on transportation, there were 25 districts counting us, or 26, and we're number 5 in the amount of money. Unfortunately, it's the local districts around us, 2 of them in particular, who pay more, and that's who we compete with for the drivers. But we're talking about districts like Richland 2, Anderson 1, big districts, Greenville. They're not paying what we're paying. So we're way above average for the state. It's pitiful that that's where it is, because that's below what they were hoping to do with minimum wage, remember, just recently. And so we were hoping with the dollar would push people, it would push us up to $15 an hour minimum. Everybody would go up $1. Some ones making 20 an hour, well, they'd make 21. And it's no guarantee that that's going to keep people here. It's no guarantee it's going to attract people. It's just one of the things that money does tend to be the best incentive that we have. We're finding some places pay more for the hour, especially if they're a company, but they may not offer the benefits package like we do. And benefits is so expensive. And we've had some bus drivers in the past to say, you know, can I work full time and not get the benefits? Well, we can't do that. And so I'd like to bring home that money instead of giving it to insurance companies and other people. And I understand that. It's how you got to live off of it. You got to support your family. And so it's just a double-edged sword that I've dealt with the whole time I've been in this office. That's why we outsourced. That's why we brought them back. That's why we had all this. It's a kind of unsettling situation. Finding people is just getting critical in every single job. Our summer programs, we have a hard time manning them. Teachers, teaching aides, substitutes, you name it. People, I hate to say it, a lot of people don't have to work because they did fine during this rough time. Unfortunately, though, many people are struggling big time and they need some kind of help. So the government can't give them enough help to pull them out of the hole that they're in. So we are just real sensitive to this. It's just frustrating that, how do we make it happen?
And I don't want you to think, by all means, I know exactly where we're at. I mean, year after year, it's the same thing.
We brought it
always
every
got
year.
items up there. And so, again, I step back and I look, and
That would be my
please,
top
again, don't misunderstand. When I see a balanced budget and zeros, yes, phenomenal. I'm thrilled to death for this year. The problem is when I look at the decades that have gone by, where every single year it's chipped away and
It's the
chipped
same
away.
thing.
And then we're in this situation where, again, items currently not included, I would put critical items not included. Those are items.
Well,
that
that's
have
not,
to-
I agree with, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's critical stuff, and the fact that we're talking that we can't afford, what is that, $4 million, just under, shy of $4 million?
Right, right.
All of
It's
that.
4.5 million, right?
$4.5 million, I mean, you
Right.
know, again, you look at the state, hey, thanks, $16. You're still $500 per kid short.
Exactly. And another piece of that is, when we do a revenue per pupil comparison based on our, compared to our other districts, our neighbors, our friends in the upstate, they all receive a lot more revenue per pupil than we do. Charleston receives $18,700 per student. And, Dorchester 2 is down there at $10,974. If we were to get as much money per student as Charleston, that's $186 million
Yep.
in 1 year, and just in 1 year. Even if we receive the state average, that's 74 million. We wouldn't be worrying about 4.5, like you said.
Right, so one thing, and, you know, maybe we haven't done a very good job of this in the past. We, locally, I think we're seeing that, hey, we're making some strides locally, and they're helping us out with the millage and that sort of stuff. I don't know that we've actually ever sent our budget to our legislators. I think we probably need to send it to them and set aside dedicated time with them so that they can see exactly the issues. When they're talking about a $16 raise, and, you know, still, Dorchester District 2, again, and I've said this
Right.
time and time again, we're in a very unique situation
Absolutely.
because of Act 388, because of a lot of different factors.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that we've, and again, I see you got it up there.
Right.
Yes, everybody watching this, all 10 people that are watching this at home, please talk to your state legislators. But I think we as a board, I think that's probably the
Oh,
next
Justin,
step.
we have. In fact, Mr. Pye and I went two years ago and spoke to several of them, and every year we have gone to talk to them. They're very,
And I want to be very
aware.
clear, I agree, and I've talked with them. I've sat down and we've talked about very high-level stuff. I think every single year we go through this budget process, it is not a step in our budget process to send our actual budget to the legislators in Columbia. We do it locally because the county requires it. I think we need to start sending this presentation, this actual budget, to our legislative delegation in Columbia so that they can see our exact numbers.
We have actually, Justin, we've actually had them come to the district office and invited the whole group of them, along with our councilman, and just had a big, we provided food because we figured we'd give them an incentive to come and eat. So, but anyway, we had them there, and we did this for like 3 years in a row. So, I mean, and then after that is when, I guess, Mr. Pye and Tanya started going to them individually and talking to them. So, but yeah, you're right. I think it is a great idea that they get a copy of this every year. And I think, I'm not 100% positive on the fact that we actually mail them a copy, but I think they have received a copy because I think they have been receiving a copy because we've met with them personally and handed them a copy of this, I think, on a yearly basis.
I don't send that to them on a regular basis. The State Department of Education gets our audit every year, and it shows our budget and our actual expenditures for the year. So that's at the State Department of Education. We can definitely get that on the,
Did you factor in, I can't remember, we've had it in and we've had it out, the 2% step for all employees?
yes, sir.
So that's in there, and we still come in at zero with that
Yes, sir.
in there. Well, that's a positive. That means everybody gets 2% of what their,
So right now, there's 2% for FY '21, current year, which was frozen until the state said yes.
so they're gonna be
And
going
then
back,
also-
giving that back to them?
Yes, sir.
And then now the new 2% hopefully will fly, and
So it'll
that'll
be
be the final.
2%, and then for next year, 2% on top of that.
Okay, so at least that's a step in the right direction. We didn't have that a month ago. So that's
Right.
real good. I see what Justin's saying, and maybe we should label it as, you know, critical things that we need to have. We have in past years put it in our budget. We have literally gone in and asked for a millage increase if that's what you want. And county council can say this is not a year we can do this, and and whatever they do, and we're not trying to put the monkey on their back. That's not what I'm advocating. I'm just telling you, if you feel that need, then we have a responsibility to tell the world what we need, and we're never gonna get nothing. We wait for people to tell us. But I'm telling you, I don't know. I won't be aggressive about what's trying to happen in this particular year, but I think we definitely need to put it out there. And if we do feel that $4.5 million is needed, then we factor in what is $4.5 million gonna cost to fund it, or do we go and prioritize it? And they say, well, we could give you half, we'll give you $2.5 million. Well, trust me, I take that and run. That's $2.5 million more than we have now. But we probably need, before this process ends, is to make that decision, but prioritize what it would be so we know, and everybody knows ahead of time what it is, and we're not picking and choosing at the ninth hour. We have a plan that people can count on. That would be my suggestion. But this is first and new. We're just trying to get input from the public, and you can see we still are looking here. We're still undecided. We're just getting numbers in, and excited as we are, not to have to cut people from their jobs. We and found a way that we can actually improve that through the COVID money, but it only goes so far and so long. But these are things that are long overdue, and
Well, if I can just add too, because Justin has made this point many times, and he's right, until Act 388 changes. And when we go talk to them, and when we meet with them, and we go to Columbia to meet with them, they always tell us, well, it's an election year, they're just going to kick the can down. That's what they say to us until after the election year. And they're being very honest, but they keep telling us because it's a constitutional law that it's Act 388, we're not going to ever get it changed. So I think we just better see what we can do to amend it, that's what I guess we should fight for. But you have said that many times, we've all said, until that changes, how much millions have we lost over the last, how many years?
Since it came into play about 10 years ago, probably.
Yeah. And I feel like our district's been beaten down, as all districts have this year, with COVID, things they couldn't control. So this is great news. This makes us happy. I mean, you brought us a birthday cake today,
But unfortunately, as Mr. Farnsworth has pointed out, and Mr. Pye, we didn't include everything in here.
Right.
We brought you a balanced budget, but it doesn't include everything that we need. And I brought this slide back up because we are allowed to ask for millage when we go to county council. We have that 3-year look back, which we would need to start with what our current year CPI and growth is, which we won't get that until May, which will be, it could be after our presentation, which is May 10th. Hopefully it'll be before then, but everything has been kind of slow moving in the state for this year. But we are allowed to do that. We are allowed to ask for it every year. And we right now have 15.11 mills in our look back that we could ask for on top of the current year millage. 15 mills, which would be 4.6 million, which is how we were going to balance it before. But I know we wouldn't be, I feel pretty sure we wouldn't be able to get 15.11 mills. But there are some districts, especially in the middle of the state, who every year they go to county council, if they have to go to county council. And they are just in favor of increasing it by the CPI and the growth every year. And it's just kind of expected so that they can continue to run their district at the current level, and then also to make it better and improve.
And none of these things are fund balance items that we talk about every year because they're not. All of these are recurring. So if they're recurring, where are we getting the money from?
Absolutely, we would have to make that back
continue it.
up.
So once it
Right.
stops, then we're going to be really short trying to make that up. So that's another. Those aren't any of those. Not any of those items, I think would qualify for that. Isn't that correct, Tina?
I think all of these are recurring items that if we started using fund balance for this, we would
That's
get
true,
into
all
a
of them are.
hole very quickly.
And so that could be a problem. So that we've done a good job with this. We met with we're meeting with the principals tomorrow, but not
We met
about
with them
that.
yesterday.
It's virtual school. We met with them. We've had so many meetings with them. I can't remember, to get their input. So
Yes.
this is the district office, the cabinet, and the principals have weighed in. So now we're bringing it to the public. And of course, every one of these are learning sessions for board members to begin to add and subtract mentally in your mind and ask the questions so that when we get down to the final that we're going to submit to the county council, we hopefully all be on the same page and feel comfortable about what needs to be done, how
Right.
it needs to be done.
They would like for us to present a balanced budget so that we
Always.
don't have to ask for a millage increase. But
And-
we should do what's best for our school district, and if we at least ask for it, we've asked. But that's up to the board. That's up to the board.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions or comments for Tina? Did you have something?
I did just have a couple more quick questions. But are you done with the presentation?
Well, the only
I
other
wanna-
thing that I had was just to show the calendar. We have I have a public hearing on May 3rd. We'll see if we get some other information from the state. If we get more information and better numbers, maybe there will be an opportunity for us to, for the board to designate which items we would want to include in the budget, and maybe still have a balanced budget. May 6th is when we typically do our board approval of the budget that we send for our presentation to county council, which is on May 10th. That is starting at 4 o'clock will be our presentation. And then they have third reading, county council chambers in Somerville on June 21st. So we need to know somewhere in between that May 10th and June 21st time to talk to county council about possible millage increase if we go for that. Or maybe by May 10th if we know when we go to county
Justin?
council.
I had a couple questions on allocations. Do you have, is it inside of this budget allocations to the fund balance for next year? Are we trying to increase from 14.8 to anything else? As well as what's our allocation towards capital funds?
We don't have an allocation coming from operating funds towards capital funds, but we have capital, every year we get capital money. If we get our tax increase that we were talking about with the auditor, we will have a little bit of extra funds that I think we've already earmarked those. But there's no additional capital coming out of our operating budget.
Okay.
You asked another allocation
Yeah,
question,
the
I'm sorry, I
fund
missed it.
balance, are we planning any allocations into the fund balance for next year?
We anticipate that we'll have a surplus this year. When we originally presented our budget, we were right at $1 million that we would probably see in savings for this current year that will go into fund balance. But again, that's not recurring money. We do have an opportunity for some, if we get additional state revenues this year, that could increase our fund balance. But again, that's one-time savings money. That's our savings account.
Gotcha. Last thing I had on here, have we started to build in at all, and I know we're still months out from the new district office, and then probably a year or more out for the new middle school, but have we built in or thought about the operations for those?
For
pieces?
the new district office, there, I think we had a small increase for energy for the new district office, and then our middle school will be on the next fiscal year.
Got it.
Because we plan to open that and be fully running by August of '22.
Mhm.
So that will fall into our new fiscal year.
Okay. To tag on to that, and this is probably for Mr. Pye, so teacher-wise, is the plan to move a good chunk of teachers for the new middle school from the schools that we're hopefully?
Always, because we moved it. Like we did for face-to-face versus virtual school, the teacher follows the children. So we will, whatever, say if we move 300 kids from Gregg or 500 from Gregg, those allocations would come from Gregg to go with their student body. Now, anybody that they lose through attrition, those teachers would be taken from that total, and say we were supposed to move 15, we might be down to only 10 or 8. That's how we will do it. And then we will hire, any of the new openings would go to the new school. Our goal is not to have any openings at DuBose and Gregg, the two main schools. The way I'm looking at it, if it works out, we hope to put some Oakbrook kids, perhaps a few neighborhoods move to Gregg. And then that means Gregg sends a greater chunk of kids that live near the new site to that school. DuBose is coming down, and then River Oaks could send maybe one neighborhood, would keep them balanced, to move them up to Oakbrook Middle. And so I'm trying to, not wholesale backloading, but try to fix it so that this middle school is going to help us from going over anywhere. We should be okay middle school-wise for a few years, good many years.
Okay. Anyone
Thank you,
else
Mr.
have
Potter,
any
for this
questions?
budget, for helping me with this budget presentation.
And I'll be moving administrators too. Also, it could be that a counselor may have to be moved from a school. One or two assistants may be moved. One of the assistants becomes the principal. We may not replace them if it's from the school where they lose enough kids, if they don't grow back. So it's not a whole new staff. We'll have some new staff, but very little. It's not like, you would think it would be, but there'll be some expenses, but mainly the utility would be the new cost.
Okay. Is there anything, any other questions? Anyone else have any other questions? Okay. If we have no other questions, and that's great news. This is exactly what we were hoping would happen, but although I think we do need to sit down and talk about our prioritized list and get that together, but we've also got a few more input sessions that we need to hear from those people too, to find out what they feel the needs are. So, but anyway, thank you very much.
Thank
We
y'all.
appreciate all that you're doing and all the good news. We
Yeah,
love it.
Thank y'all very much.
Okay, if there's nothing else that we have to discuss for the budget, then I need a motion to adjourn this meeting. Okay, motion's first made by Evan, second. Ms. Robinson, all in favor? Got 5 and 1 absent. Thank you very much. Excuse me, 6 and 1 absent.